What are your guys' thoughts in regards to the various incidences where people claim to have interacted with UFOs? Like there's that guy who was on
Bob
Rogan
Lazar.
recently.
Bob Lazar.
No, not Bob
No.
Lazar. The guy who went missing for like a day or so, and like his friends, like they all basically testified that like that a object took him, like a unidentified flying object took him, and like all the sheriffs and everyone in the town thought that they killed him, and then the guy just like magically appeared like the next day, and
Oh
like
man.
he claimed that he got abducted. And
Wow.
like there's other stories like that. And I think from my perspective, when I look at that, like I don't necessarily take it as oh well, all these people experience these things and have similar things, and that that conclusively means that it happens. I kind of look at it in the same phenomenon almost as like religion and some of the things that we wholeheartedly believe that we know is just
Mm-hmm.
more likely than not true, and just the phenomenon of having an experience that you wholeheartedly believe to be true, but is a bit
Mm-hmm.
you know
So this was actually something that Joe Rogan said, but it's like something along the lines of like humans like to be special, right, in some way, and claiming to have been in contact with aliens and being abducted is a really easy way to feel special, and so I think it's really easy to just be like, hey, I was abducted by aliens, and everyone's like, oh my god, you're
There's no
this
real
like
way to prove it. That
yeah,
exactly. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
there's no real way to prove, but conveniently enough, I am on r/aliens on Reddit, and I do see a lot of posts about aliens, and there's one really interesting one where it was a cow in a field, and basically, I'm pretty sure it was like the udder. It was like one organ, right, that was like surgically removed from the cow, and
yeah.
there were no traces of blood anywhere.
Lazar, that they mentioned that
Yeah.
on the Bob Lazar one.
Mm-hmm. And basically, like, it was something like the cow was like drained of all its blood. It was missing an udder that was like removed like perfectly and everything like that, and there's no traces of blood anywhere. And then everyone was like, yeah, this is just not possible. And it was just lying in the middle of a field. And so the first thought was that, oh, like it was abducted by aliens and then like operated on and then just dropped back on Earth and they just left.
Wow, that's
I think
yeah.
I think one thing that I think about sometimes and I find funny when it comes to aliens, it seems like we're stuck in the mindset of it being an intelligent entity from another galaxy, from another planet. But what if it's from here, but just a different dimension or something like that? Like it's here. It's not like foreign in regards to like being from a different planet. Just I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What are your guys'
I
So
mean,
thoughts on
that's
that?
hard to.
a really interesting
Well,
point
yeah.
that you brought up by saying different dimension, right? Because I think so. A common thing in a lot of sci-fi movies, right, is the overuse of the word they come from different dimensions. Because, like, if you technically think about, like, the word dimension is very different from, like, galaxy or solar system or universe. Like, saying that this species is from another galaxy and saying they're from another dimension are two radically different things, right? So we actually spoke about this on a very recent podcast of ours where we were like, we as three-dimensional beings physically cannot perceive higher dimensions. So if there was a four-dimensional object right in front of us, we would not be able to perceive it. Our brain would not be able to decode it simply because of the way that we're made, right? So that, I mean, when I was initially starting, like, liking physics and getting to know a lot of different things, I'm like, okay, this overuse of the word dimension, these guys just don't know what they're talking about. But the fact of the matter is, that's actually a possibility, that there is just some alien, quote unquote, like of a higher dimension that we simply cannot see or perceive. And that will simply always be the case. We will have no way, unless, we come up with a device that can, I don't even know if this would work, but maybe like a device that can view higher dimensions or something. Unless we come up with something like that, we would never be able to see such aliens. So that is actually a valid argument. So you don't.
That's not possible, Ray.
I don't know.
It's like building a 3-dimensional object.
I know to see I know that doesn't really make sense, but
possible.
What I'm saying is maybe like 200, 300 years from now, where like light or some kind of radiation moves differently in higher dimensions. Maybe we figure something like that out, and maybe with that knowledge, we can, say, okay, we measure this area, we see that this radiation is going in this certain way, so it must be a higher dimension or something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I'm just saying that is a possibility. And also one thing, as I was saying previously, that real life signal that, remember I said I'm going to search up? Listen to this. In April and May of 2019, the 64-meter wide Parkes radio telescope located in Australia was recording radio transmissions from the star Proxima Centauri. Over the course of hours, the telescope recorded data from 30-minute intervals before looking in a different direction. And what they found from this data, this procedure called nodding, is used to establish that any observed signal that is coming from a particular direction rather than random noise. So this data that they had collected was a signal and not simply random noise that they had seen, just simply from the universe. So for 5 of these half-hour intervals, the signal was observed while the antenna was pointing at Proxima Centauri. And it was not detected at all when it was aimed in another direction. So I can link this article in the description below. And I think this is kind of cool. It's a CNN article, so it's nothing really scientific. Obviously, maybe do more due diligence, not sure. But just reading this at first glance kind of, tells me the idea that maybe it's a possibility. Because remember, even if there is a civilization hundreds of thousands of light years away that recently, because on the Joe Loeb podcast, right, with Joe Rogan, we were talking about that. They were talking about the possibility, and a lot of other podcasts, a lot of these scientists agree with the possibility that a lot of life probably started around the same era in the universe, including like if we look at the universe objectively and look at the whole timeline, we can kind of assume, if we can say, that life started around at the same time. So if we're making that assumption, right, and we, after 4 billion years of the Earth existing, just got out all these satellites, like the Voyager 1 was released less than 100 years ago. The WOW signal that we released less than 100 years ago. So all of these signals that, if let's say an alien civilization released 200-300 years ago, they're still like 50 million light years away. So we would probably not detect that. But something from Proxima Centauri that's so close would, even if there was some life on that planet or some planets over there, we would receive that signal a lot faster than any other possible planet because it's so close to us. So that's simply the idea that I'm trying to think about, because they're so close that it could be like a higher chance that we see life from there.
By the way, his name is Dr. Avi Loeb.
Avi Loeb. Wait, then who is that? Did I say Bob Loeb or something? Or something? What did I say?
Yeah, you said Joe Loeb.
Joe Loeb. I meant like Joe Rogan's podcast. Avi Loeb was on. Yeah, you know what I meant. Sorry, I just brain was going through some stuff.